During the period we know as the Late Bronze Age, roughly between the years 1500 to 1200 BCE, there were several great powerful kingdoms in the ancient Near East. These were what archaeologist and historian Trevor Bryce calls the Big Five: Egypt, the Hurrian Kingdom of the Mitanni, Kassite Babylonia, also known as Karduniash, the Hittite Empire, and later on, Assyria. However, there were certainly other powerful kingdoms around the world, one of them being that of Mycenaean Greece. We don't include the Mycenaean kingdoms amongst the Big Five just mentioned because, given their location around the Aegean Sea, they were quite far away from all of the action in the ancient Near East and didn't really interact or have a direct impact on kingdoms and empires that were located there. At least, that's what was once thought. In the 1920s, the Swiss scholar Emile Fourier claimed that indeed the world of Mycenaean Greece did in fact have contact, perhaps substantial contact, with at least one of these great kingdoms, that of the Hittite Empire, known by its contemporaries as Hatti. Fourier based this on a word mentioned in Hittite texts that for archaeologists and historians alike is shrouded in mystery: Ahhiyawa. In fact, this term only appears in Hittite texts. We never see it in the large volume of Egyptian, Babylonian, or even Assyrian texts that have been discovered, which further adds to the mystery. All that we know from the context of the Hittite texts is that it refers to a powerful kingdom, but which kingdom and exactly where is still a mystery. Around the beginning of the 16th century BCE, it's believed that Minoan immigrants from Crete had established a city on the southwestern coast of what's today Turkey. Though most of us may know it as the ancient city of Miletos, in Hittite texts it's called Milawata or Milawanda. However, by 1400 BCE, the Hittite Empire laid claim to this territory as one of its western vassal states. Across the Aegean Sea were the Greek-speaking Mycenaean city-states, and it's believed that by 1400 BCE, citizens from mainland Greece and its surrounding islands had landed on the shores of western Anatolia around the area of Miletos. Thus, contact and most likely conflict between the Hittites and groups of Mycenaean Greeks would have likely occurred. While many archaeologists believed that the two probably did come into contact, there initially was very little evidence available at the time to support such claims. As mentioned earlier, in the 1920s, Swiss scholar Emile Fourier claimed that he had discovered proof that the Hittite and Mycenaeans not only knew of each other, but that they also corresponded and respected one another as great powers. He drew this conclusion from references in Hittite texts to a land called Ahhiyawa, which can also be pronounced Ahhiyawa. Fourier believed that this word was the Hittite equivalent of the word, and to all of you Greek speakers out there, I apologize for mispronouncing this, Achaioi, which in English would be Achaeans, one of the names used by the poet Homer as a general name for the Greeks of the Age of Heroes, who scholars today identify as Mycenaean Greeks. Of course, not everyone agreed with Fourier. For example, the German linguist Ferdinand Sommer dismissed the name similarity as nothing more than coincidence. However, as more Hittite sites are excavated and newly discovered texts translated, there seems to be more evidence to support Fourier's hypothesis. One such piece of evidence is the so-called Tawagalawa Letter, written in the 13th century BCE by a Hittite king believed to have been Hattushili III, and addressed to an unnamed king of Ahhiyawa. Unfortunately, the letter is incomplete. Of its 3 parts, we only have the last one, and even that has been severely damaged. Still, there's a lot that one can learn from this letter about the relationship between Hatti and Ahhiyawa. For example, it illustrates that the Ahhiyawan kingdom was politically and militarily involved in the affairs of Western Anatolia during the Late Bronze Age, and that it sought to increase its influence in the region through the use of anti-Hittite insurrectionists. It's also clear that they were a pretty formidable adversary and threatened Hittite control of their westernmost vassal kingdoms. In the Tawagalawa Letter, the Hittite king addresses this mystery man of Ahhiyawa as an equal, using the term, "my brother." this was not just some formality. Only great kings of the big 5 kingdoms we mentioned earlier, Egypt, the Mitanni, Babylonia, Hatti, and later Assyria, used that term for their respective counterparts, and that too only after they'd proven themselves worthy of such a highly esteemed title. For example, when Adad-nirari I of Assyria, who was at the time the newcomer to the group, addressed the Hittite king Urhi-Teshub as brother in a letter, he was met with the following response. "Why do you still continue to speak about brotherhood? For what reason should I write to you about brotherhood? Do those who are not on good terms customarily write to one another about brotherhood? On what account should I write to you about brotherhood? Were you and I born from the same mother? As my grandfather and my father did not write to the king of Assyria about brotherhood, you shall not keep writing to me about brotherhood and great kingship. It is not my wish." As you can see, using the term my brother, let alone the other titles Hattusili uses in the Tawagalawa Letter, such as Great King and My Peer, must have meant that at least from Hattusili's point of view, the king of Ahhiyawa had considerable power, at least enough to cause trouble for the Hittite Empire. Let's examine some of the contents of the Tawagalawa Letter. I'll summarize it while also reading some of the translated passages to you. In this letter, the Hittite king, whom again we presume is Hattusili III, writes to the king of Ahhiyawa with regard to the activities of a renegade named Pia Maradu, who has been causing trouble in the western part of the empire. Though we don't know the name of the Ahhiyawan king, the name of his brother, Tawagalawa, does come up, and it's after him that the text is named. However, Hattusili's complaints against Pia Maradu and the king of Ahhiyawa's refusal to act are really the focus of the letter. Hattusili writes, "According to this rumor, during the time when Pia Maradu leaves behind his wife, children, and household in my brother's land, your land is affording him protection. But he is continually raiding my land, and whenever I have prevented him in that, he comes back into your territory. Are you now, my brother, favorably disposed to this conduct?" Though Hattusili rebukes the king of Ahhiyawa for giving refuge to Pia Maradu, he actually needs his cooperation in curbing the outlaw's future anti-Hittite activities, which include inciting rebellions amongst his vassals, as well as rounding up Hittite subjects for relocation to Ahhiyawan territory, presumably against their will, and probably for labor on various mega building projects. Unfortunately, much of the following part of the text is broken up, but it's obvious that in this case, Hattusili prefers diplomacy rather than force to rein in Pia Maradu. He asks the Ahhiyawan king to convey the following to the outlaw. "Now, my brother, write at least this. Rise up, go forth into the land of Hatti. Your lord has settled his account with you. Otherwise, come into the land of Ahhiyawa, and in whatever place I settle you, you must remain there. Otherwise, rise up with your captives, your wives, and children, and settle down in another place. So long as you are at enmity with the king of Hatti, exercise your hostility from another country. From my country, you shall not conduct hostilities. Send that to him." Hattusili essentially proposed the following options to the king of Ahhiyawa. 1. Persuade Pia Maradu to surrender to the Hittite authorities. 2. Allow Pia Maradu to stay in Ahhiyawan territory on the condition that he would remain there and cease his anti-Hittite activities. Or 3. Compel him to move to another country, taking his family and entourage with him. In the end, we don't know what the response of the Ahhiyawan king was. All that we have is the Hittite copy of this incomplete, damaged letter. However, the letter does tell us that at the time, the area of Miletos was contested between Hatti and Ahhiyawa. Another question scholars have is exactly where was this great kingdom of Ahhiyawa? There are several possibilities. As you may know, Mycenaean Greece may not have been a single state, but instead several city-states that shared the same culture and language. Of these several city-states, the favorites for Ahhiyawa are the powerful kingdoms of Mycenae, Tiryns, Argos, and Pylos. Some, though, have suggested that the island of Rhodes might be the base of Ahhiyawa due to its proximity to western Anatolia, but it's more likely that this may have been a colony or protectorate of one of the more powerful Mycenaean states just mentioned. Perhaps the great king of Ahhiyawa was a leader of a coalition of Mycenaean city-states like Agamemnon in Homer's Iliad. Some have even proposed that the two kings are one and the same, which again is pure speculation. Until more information surfaces, we just don't know the answers to these questions. So, in the end, were Ahhiyawa and Mycenaean Greece the same? What do you think? I'd love to hear your response to this question. Maybe you know something that wasn't mentioned here. Let me and other viewers know in the comments. Once again, thanks so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. I hope you learned something, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, check out the History with Sai podcast and follow the channel on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Thanks again, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.